The introductions in Fallout are perhaps some of the most memorable moments in the games. From the simple short openers like the original Fallout, to the long form, rather drawn out types that tell a story of their own, such as Fallout 4. Let's talk about the Fallout introductions. So, like most things in video games, whether one enjoys a particular style of an introduction falls entirely on subjectivity. However, we can look at a few elements and see how each title lives up to fulfilling a need. There's 4 elements that I refer to as DIME. Duration, simply how long it takes to get through a segment. Information, what the introduction tells us about the wasteland or the quest you'll be on. Mechanics, similar to information, but more about how the gameplay operates. Tutorials, basically. And entertainment, how fun the introduction is, with set pieces and/or player engagement. I'll be going over each while giving my own thoughts. Naturally, you as an individual may have your own opinions in regards to each section. So let's begin. Now, starting off with duration, I could just make an assumption about each game's general pace and move on, but no, I wanted to do my due diligence. So I decided to measure how long an intro takes to get through. But this is also questionable. After all, where does an intro begin and where does it end? Does New Vegas' intro end when you leave Doc Mitchell's house? Or does it end when you leave Goodsprings? Does an intro start after you create a character? Or is the opening cinematic included? I decided to use Fallout 1 and Fallout 3 as a reference point. Fallout 1, you leave the cave and enter the world map. Fallout 3, you leave the cave and enter the open world. It also gives you the option to readjust your character. Using the Enter the World idea and character readjustment, I decided to apply that to Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas. Furthermore, the War Never Changes cinematic plays after you click New Game in Fallout 3 and up, while in the original 2, it exists as its own separate entity. To keep it as fair as possible, I'll say the intro begins after you click New Game and ends after you leave the vault or the vault's cave for 1, 3, 4, and 76. It also ends after leaving Arroyo for Fallout 2 and Goodsprings for New Vegas. In addition, we'll be counting the War Never Changes cinematic as part of the intro in all the games. And we're including character creation, so I needed some ground rules for each game to follow. Every game's build was a small guns, high agility focused one. I left everything at default except for agility, which I dumped the points into. This is more tricky with the modern games, particularly Fallout 4, so I just evened out the non-agility stats after maxing agility. In addition, I tagged small guns where it applied and chose no traits to keep the playing fields even between the games. Also, I didn't care about editing looks, so I left everything at default. With that out of the way, I wanted to measure the times, but everyone has their own playstyle. So I played the intros in 3 forms. Consumptive, where I consumed a ton of dialogue and experience before leaving. Relax, where I didn't go out of my way to consume dialogue or get experience, but if I was told to do something, I did. And speeding, where I skipped cutscenes, dialogue, and did nothing extra and headed straight for the world. I did each one of these once, and felt my sanity chip away as I replayed the same section 3 times. Subscribe for my suffering, please. Anyway, here are the results. So, fairly predictable, but the shortest 2 intros were Fallout 1 and Fallout 76, which features a rather simple set of directions of just getting from point A to point B. Fallout 1, exiting the cave, and Fallout 76, exiting the vault. In the speeding category, you can run by all the rats in Fallout 1, and in 76, you can ignore literally everything, including the camp, and just beeline to the exit. The most time-consuming intro in the series when playing consumptively is Fallout New Vegas, with Fallout 3 grabbing second place. However, speeding New Vegas' intro makes it shorter than speeding through Fallout 3 and 4. That said, rushed Fallout 3 and 4 is about the same. Truthfully, Fallout 4's introduction is so script-heavy that even a speeding variant is pretty close to a relaxed one, with most of the time being chewed off from skipping the opening cinematic. It's interesting given how little there is to Fallout 76 intro in direct comparison. But despite that significant difference, to make a consumptive version of 4 and 76 noticeably different, I had to activate a fair bit of dialogue from the objects in the Sole Survivor's home and the Mr. Handys in Vault 76. However, the modern Fallout intros lack a lot of interactivity. While Fallout 4 has an overall shorter introduction than Fallout 3, it feels a lot longer since there's so little to actually do in it. You walk around the house until it's time to move on to the next segment. It just drags along. Speaking of dragging, Fallout 2's intro is lengthy as well, but rushing through the Temple of Trials can have you out towards Klamath before 5 minutes or even up. Overall, I don't think these results are a surprise to anyone, but it's still interesting to have them formatted. Now, as far as information goes, there seems to be two competing thoughts on style: unknown versus known. Unknown is the style of 1, 3, 4, and 76, where they don't really give you much in the way of world information beyond the Great War. Each one tries to keep your protagonist ignorant to the Wasteland's offerings. You'll get information about the Big Boom and your family's history, 1 and 3 being the most similar as they were both raised in the Vault. 4, and possibly your specific 76 Vault Dweller, being pre-war. Fallout 1 just has your overseer basically going, "Shit's bad, please save us." Fallout 3 leaves you in the dark for a while, you just learn your dad ran off and the overseer suddenly wants you dead. Fallout 4, someone stole your kid and shot your spouse. And Fallout 76, well, all you really know is it's time to leave. For these protagonists, it's all about discovering what's happening out there. Your character isn't supposed to know, like a new player to the franchise would not know either. The known style is 2 and New Vegas. They both act more as sequels and explain what happened to the post-war world. 2 is a bit more direct, as the introduction explains the basic plotline of what happened to the Vault Dweller, the Chosen One's ancestor, and the Super Mutant Army. The intro also reveals the primary antagonistic group, though without really saying much about them. New Vegas gives basic information about the NCR, the Legion, and the New Vegas Strip, as well as the importance of Hoover Dam. In addition, it also reveals the primary antagonist of the first half of the game. There's even more information to be found if you wander around Goodsprings before leaving. Besides that, 2 is similar to 1 in the sense that your leader is like, "Shit's bad, please save us." New Vegas, all you really know is that someone shot you in the head for a poker chip. One style tries to treat each protagonist more or less as clueless, while the other style wants to explain some of the things that happened before the game began. The former is more open to newcomers, while the latter doesn't mind assuming the player isn't new. So, tutorials. Fallout 1 doesn't at all. You get sent out of Vault 13 and you either shoot or run past the rats. That's it, nothing else really to it. Fallout 2 has the Temple of Trials, which is supposed to be a tutorial section, but it doesn't really tell you how to play. If you don't know how to pick a lock, you're stuck. That said, Fallout 1 and 2 both come from a time where games came with sizable manuals, so it's perhaps not fair to really criticize different eras. Fallout 3 has a fair bit of teaching stuff inside the vault, like shooting the BB gun, and even how to move around. Fallout New Vegas has a set of tutorial missions in Goodsprings, ranging from things like shooting bottles, crafting healing powders, and picking locks. Fallout 4 has a combat section inside the vault, which is probably the most amount of educational material within the intro. And 76 has a Mr. Hennies inside Vault 76 that give you a brief verbal rundown on things. That said, the newer games don't exactly stop the hints and educational material at the introduction. A lot of the first-time encounters continue to relay information to the player well after the intro ends. So each intro may have some level of entertainment to be had, though that will depend on your tastes. Fallout 1 just throws you out to a cave full of rats, gives you a gun, and lets you go out on your way. Immediately leaving the cave, you can do whatever you want within the timer. Fallout 2 is a bit different. It has the Temple of Trials, a short dungeon full of weak enemies and a couple of easy puzzles. That's not too bad, but it only gives you a spear and your fists, and if you're not a melee or an arm-focused build, you'll miss a lot. However, outside the Temple of Trials, there's a number of quests you can do. Fallout 3 has the growing up thing. You'll be born, play a short segment as a toddler where you distribute your special points, grow into a kid, play another short segment where you explore the dialogue system and shoot a BB gun to learn the weapon mechanics, grow into a teenager where you discover more dialogue option as well as tag skills through the GOAT, and finally ending as an adult where you'll begin fighting weak vault security guards and rad roaches on your way out the vault. Fallout New Vegas features cinematic attempted murder along with waking up to Doc Mitchell treating you, and he'll examine you to build your character. Outside of Doc Mitchell's home is a fair number of quests and objectives that you can complete, much like Fallout 2. Fallout 4 really tries to build up a number of set pieces for the story. The sole survivor slowly waltzes around their home, there's dialogue with a cinematic-like effect, a large explosion, and a dramatic helpless abduction with a side of murder. After that, you escape the cryopod and are able to actually start playing the game. The sudden faster pace makes things pick up as you finally leave Vault 111. Fallout 76 doesn't really have much. You build your character's physical appearance, grab some stuff as robots talk to you, grab a holotape from the Overseer's office, and leave. It's pretty quick, at least. So to summarize, the original Fallout is very brief. It tells you that you need to find something and sets you loose. There's not much hand-holding, but then again, normal cave rats aren't that dangerous. Fallout 2 has an intro that reveals some basic plot points from the original game, forces you to go through a small dungeon that's easy, but a slog, though it does offer a variety of quests. Fallout 3 has an interesting segment that features the lone wanderer growing up and teaches you a few mechanics with it. It has a fun climax with you escaping your now hostile home, however, it doesn't keep the same entertainment value after a few playthroughs. It just becomes tedious. Fallout New Vegas has a very entertaining opening cinematic that explains the happenings of the Wasteland, but the Doc Mitchell section can get a little exhausting after a while, especially after multiple playthroughs. Still, it's more brief in comparison to Fallout 3. And outside, there's a variety of quests that you can complete. Fallout 4's intro is slow, real slow, but it does have an awe-inspiring number of set pieces that's very pretty from an artistic standpoint. Still, with such a slow start, it can be a real pain to get through. That said, it doesn't really relay much new information, bar a couple of vague bits from the news anchor. And finally, 76's intro is brief. It tells you that the world is dead and it's time to leave. There's dialogue, but nothing really interesting. That's about it. It's nice for swiftness, but kinda boring. Personally, overall, I think my favorite introduction is Fallout New Vegas's, for its explanation of the Wasteland and having a fair bit of quests to complete. As an established player of the franchise, I'm less of a fan of constantly replaying an ignorant vault dweller, and prefer to have a protagonist already familiar with the Wasteland, if new to a specific area. And after that, it's probably a tie between Fallout 1 and Fallout 3's. One's brief and sets you out on your goal, while 3 has the growing up mechanic. That's very memorable the first time it happens. But what about you guys? What's your favorite introduction?